but let's talk a little bit about the key areas of tomorrow. Now, from a West Ham perspective, I expect us to go into the game with 4-2-3-1. Injury-wise, I believe Soufal's out, so that means that Ben Johnson or Fredericks are going to start at right back. I imagine you get Cress at left back with Ogbonna and Zuma coming back in, Rice and Souček, Fornals on the left, Bowen on the right, Benny down the middle, and Mikel Antonio returning to the side. As for Tottenham, we know that they rested 8 games for a game they don't consider their cup final. Lloris will probably be in goal. I imagine the starting centre-backs are going to be Dyer and Romero, they're an interesting pair. We'll get into it, of course. We will. Reguilon at left back, Emerson Royale at right back. I think they're going to go Højbjerg and Skip in a double pivot. So I think they'll match West Ham up a little bit. I know I've seen people talk about flitting between a 4-3-3 and a 4-2-3-1. In the attacking midfield sense, this is where the problems lie for me. Ndombele, Lucas Moura, Son, and of course the big man up front in Harry Kane. So let's talk about the areas that West Ham need to be concerned about. And I look down that left-hand side for Tottenham. And we know that because of obviously Heung-min Son. Now, I know this season Spurs haven't been necessarily fantastic in terms of attacking play, but against Newcastle, I thought the interchange with those attacking midfielders caused them problems. I guess in terms of isolation of that game, Newcastle are a poor team in terms of pressing, in terms of defensive shape. West Ham will be completely different in terms of how Tottenham can try and hurt us a little bit. But it's down that left-hand side for me. And the reason why I look at that is because of what Nuno is trying to implement. At times in that game, he's used Skip. He's allowed his team to go to a back three, and he's got Reguilon further forward. And Reguilon had the freedom of St. James's Park, and West Ham cannot afford for the same to happen. Now, obviously, down that right-hand side is Ben Johnson. We know that he's played the full 90 minutes this week, so it's going to be a bit problematic in terms of fitness. I hope he comes into the game and he's fresh and he can deal with it. I still would prefer Ben Johnson, if I'm honest, just because 1v1 defending, I look at him positionally, I think he's spot on. I know his end product could have been better the other day, but defensively, I don't think there are too many issues with him. He's obviously got the athleticism. He's obviously got the physicality. But nonetheless, I do think when you're dealing with that type of overload, and in particular, you look at some of Tottenham's attacking players in Harry Kane, a player that can drop deep, a player that can move around that front line, and Ndombele will be given the freedom in the number 10. I do think he is going to need a little bit of protection. So for me, it is on Jarrod Bowen to sit a little bit deeper. And I know that sounds a bit counterintuitive. He's been so good this season in the forward role. We've seen him come into central areas. I've spoken a lot about his hold-up play. And I do think he can still be effective in an attacking sense against Spurs. But I do look at that side and think you need protection, you need to deal with the overload. And if anything, I think in this game, we could see Jarrod Bowen's ability to carry the ball, come to the fore, and again, exploit the space. Because whilst we can sit here and talk about how Spurs can double up on that left-hand side, it does, of course, mean Reguilon is out of position. And I look at him versus Skip as well. I look how quick West Ham are to get men forward in the counter. That's something that West Ham can use. So it doesn't mean necessarily by being defensive that West Ham are being negative. And if anything, we can try and work into our strengths a little bit. Let's talk about Tottenham's right-hand side. So this is a little bit of a battle of both wings in essence. Emerson Royale. I've heard about him and I've heard he's poor. But when I watched him against Newcastle, I wasn't quite sure he would be that poor. In terms of passing and distribution, and I'm talking 5-10 yard passes here, he consistently misplaced the ball. Physically, he struggled against Joel Linton in terms of aerial duels, in terms of positioning. He's always out. He never goes to quite meet the attacker on the left-hand side. Sometimes he's a little bit too further forward. We know that his game really lies in getting forward. And I guess from that perspective, from the fullback point of view, he can cause us some issues if he is going to get that overlap on the right. But defensively, the fact that Joel Linton was able to hold the ball up almost unchallenged at times does lend to the way that West Ham want to play. And of course, when we try and distribute and we play out from the back, it is slightly different. But with Antonio in the side, it tends to be Lucas Fabianski into Mikel Antonio and then developing play from there and almost bypassing presses. And I don't think Tottenham in this game are necessarily going to be a high impact press side. There's not going to be too much energy there. I know they will try and engage West Ham from the front. But if you are going to go direct, you look at Antonio's positioning generally. And Antonio, as I always say, tends to go off to that left-hand side. That is a way that West Ham can try and bypass what Tottenham are going to do out of possession. And it also gives us an opportunity to try and isolate their back four at times. And even a back three. I talked about Reguilon being on that left-hand side. If Skip's going to drop in again, it does cause them issues. So I do want Antonio to build from that side if possible. And equally, you look at someone like a Pablo Fornals, could play on the left. There is an option here for Ben Rama to play on the left. That would intrigue me because I think, as I've touched on with Benny a few times this season, him getting in beyond and making movement when he's not necessarily got the ball and not looking to the ball to feet, I think he can use his intelligence in that sense to get in beyond Emerson Royale. And I think West Ham can create an overload of our own on that left. If you get Cress further forward, in fact, I probably would say with Cress, if West Ham are building in Tottenham's final third and Tottenham are in a defensive shape, I think there'll be spaces in those wide areas, particularly the left-hand side. But I don't even think that Creswell needs to necessarily get that far forward in order to exploit Tottenham in those wide areas because of, like I've touched on, how Reguilon gets further forward, because of Emerson Royale's positioning can be a little bit off at times. So that, for me, is a weakness of Spurs that West Ham can definitely look to exploit. Another, I suppose it's a bit of a grey area, and I've spoken about West Ham being able to deal with presses from the defensive positions this season. I think against Everton and in midweek, I thought we actually looked better in building out from the back against teams that were trying to press us. We know that Brentford have caused us issues by playing the front two. From the look of Tottenham against Newcastle, they did try and put a front three. You expect Kane, Moura, Son, possibly, to press us higher. Now, this may seem slightly risky. I think West Ham, there is benefit in West Ham pushing the midfield a little bit higher and playing a slightly higher line and trying to go with the idea that our defence can make those adjustments when necessary. I look at Tottenham in terms of trying to build up from the back. Generally speaking, Højbjerg is the player that is going to get the ball. And Højbjerg as a player, by the way, I do rate him. I think he's fantastic in terms of his passing range, in terms of passes into the forward men, in beyond. We saw the assist the other day. We can also look at it in terms of playing through those lines. But I just feel there is an opportunity for West Ham to try and squeeze them. We've spoken about Skip moving to that left-hand side position. If Højbjerg is isolated, if West Ham try and press up, if Declan Rice and Souček back themselves, or David Moyes believes that West Ham can back themselves in that sense, I possibly feel that we could try and get the turnover very close to Tottenham's defence and isolate them. I talk about isolating quite a lot. And again, it's not really a technical term. It's just what you can see on the pitch. I look at Eric Dyer in particular, and I'll get onto Eric Dyer and how West Ham can really hurt him. I just feel that by forcing Tottenham into losing the ball, creating the turnovers, backing ourselves, it's something that we do against Leicester quite a lot. And you see when Leicester play with their double pivot of Tielemans and Ndidi, you've got two players there that want to play through the press, and West Ham just simply don't allow it with the midfield. And here I feel there is an opportunity. Yes, of course, there are vulnerabilities that if Tottenham can play into somebody like a Harry Kane, he can hold the ball up and West Ham are out of shape, then we've got a problem because Tottenham will look to get forward on the left-hand side with Reguilon, and equally, they've already got that overload in that central area, and they've got good ball carriers as well. So we could be exploited. So again, a risky strategy, but something that West Ham could employ if we did want to try and force the issue a little bit and almost create that 2v1 with Mikel Antonio. And we back our attacking midfielders to get further forward and get him beyond as well. So without further ado, let's discuss Eric Dyer versus Mikel Antonio. I've spoke a bit about how Antonio can look to peel off to the left-hand side against Emerson Royale. Again, build up play from there, hold the ball up and introduce the attacking midfielders. One other way that West Ham could look to try and hurt Tottenham again is via the high press, but also getting Mikel Antonio on the shoulder. And I think when we saw us on Thursday night against Genk, the one thing we struggled without Mikel Antonio was that movement in beyond. And I think that's probably more out of how we used to play him with him as opposed to when we've got the false nine and the players aren't moving in beyond as much. I look at Eric Dyer and it's not a foregone conclusion. I know I've picked it up a little bit. It isn't, because if it becomes an aerial duel between Eric Dyer and everything's in front of him and he's got Romero alongside him, that's a problem, because aerially, I think you're playing into his strengths, Dyer's, in terms of his ability to win those aerial duels. Where Dyer will struggle is if Mickey's on the half turn already. And in order to do that, I just feel we need to force possession a little bit, force a turnover, and get a Benrahma Fornals on the ball. And even to a degree with Pablo Fornals, again, discussing that kind of those positions between Benrahma and Fornals. Fornals could play the 10 in this game. He's got the energy, he's got the press, he can put pressure on Højbjerg, he can force the issue. Maybe we don't have to put Declan and Souček that high up. And again, you're getting him on the ball and you're relinquishing Mikel Antonio of that build-up play. And that's one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at the two centre-backs, and what I sort of glimpsed from the game against Newcastle, was their ability to deal with forwards with good movement between them, the spaces between them. Now, you've got to look at it and think Romero and Dyer is a relatively new partnership in that sense. I actually think Romero has got pedigree. Dyer is where I feel that they'll struggle. But Mikel Antonio, and I've said this on numerous occasions, is he's very good at finding the space between the two centre-backs. Very good. Yes, people may think from the outside he looks clunky on the ball, technically not the best. I actually think his movement in the box when you're getting deliveries in is very good. And that's where West Ham could profit from, if we're honest. But I don't envisage it's going to be a type of game where West Ham are dominating possession so much against Tottenham and giving them the opportunity to get that transition going and get their players further forward. I actually think it's going to be a game that West Ham want to counter on them, bypass the press, be direct. So it could be slightly different. But in terms of deliveries into the box, you just want to be freeing up Mikel Antonio in terms of getting in between those spaces, getting in beyond, stretching the game, stretching the centre-backs. And I feel that even if Mikel Antonio isn't necessarily directly central and he's moving to either side, probably the left if we're honest, then you are forcing those Tottenham players out of position. And it's a relatively new back four. And I just think that particularly down certain sides, I'm not convinced they're strong enough. Whether it's going in, engaging with the ball, whether it's then trying to reduce the space between the back four, they want to be compact. That's, of course, what Nuno wants to do. And if West Ham can force the issue and pull them out of position, it benefits our overload all day long. Because the minute Mickey gets it on the left, Fornals, Benrahma, Jared Bowen all come central, and then it's a problem for them. It's even more of a problem if you've got Thomas Souček involved. So that's another area. I want to discuss Harry Kane before I wrap up this tactical view. Now, from the outside, and particularly for England, in fact, I found it really strange him dropping the extent that he drops deep. It's unnecessary. It would be brilliant for us because it would mean that in terms of creativity, West Ham can adjust very quickly defensively. And if Kane wants to pick a pass around the halfway line, then I think with a double pivot, West Ham have got more than enough. The only thing is now what I'm seeing from Nuno, Harry Kane's positioning, whilst he is dropping deep at times, isn't as deep as it was. And that, of course, means that he is a little bit more on the shoulder. He's working in terms of the build-up play. And it does mean Tottenham are being able to regain possession for larger periods in the game, in the final third. And that's where West Ham just can't afford to switch off. Because it would be easy to look at Tottenham and say, well, like I touched on, let's go press Eric Dyer. Let's go press Højbjerg, of course. But in terms of what Tottenham can offer in an attacking sense, you've got four players there that in terms of build-up, in terms of ball carrying, and on Ndombele's problem as well, and the freedom that he's now getting to pick up the ball in wide areas, West Ham have to switch on to that. It's really a case of maybe we have to sit slightly deeper. I don't know. I'm not sure how Moyes is going to approach this game. There are opportunities in both, but again, there are weaknesses as well. And I don't know. Kane's an interesting one. What I would say is don't expect Kane to necessarily be dropping so deep that he's not a problem anymore. I think that now they're getting him involved further forward. The build-up's better. He can use his movement, his intelligence. I think you even see that for the goal against Newcastle, bending the run as well. That's a problem West Ham can't afford to switch off from. So I think it'll be this game, in terms of expectations for it, there are obvious weaknesses that West Ham can exploit of Tottenham's. But I don't want to be sitting here tomorrow and saying we were naive in this sense. We shouldn't have pressed so high. Maybe we shouldn't have. Maybe our build out from the back should have been better. There may be a situation where that is the case. But for me, I think West Ham win this game 1-0. I think defensively we're switched on. I think that's the most important thing to remember. I think in terms of building up from the back, I don't think West Ham will look to dominate possession in the same way that we have done in previous games. I don't think Tottenham's shape necessarily lends to West Ham trying to play a little bit horizontal and build up around it. If anything, I think that West Ham might profit from trying to play directly into Mikel Antonio, forcing the issue, and then thereby having the overload. And it probably will be a little bit of a beacon back to the way that West Ham have played previously. And again, I haven't really got a problem with that from David Moyes. It is just about being aware of Tottenham's strengths. We know they've got fantastic attacking players. And again, utilising some of their key weaknesses. Utilising the fact that back four is very new. The midfield partnership of Skip and Højbjerg is very new. In principle, it works. But if we look at Newcastle, they didn't press them high enough for them to force issues, where I felt that maybe they could have had a little bit of luck. They could have got further forward. And defensively, their line was too high. So you have to get that balance. Uh, it's just about managing those moments, really, for me, just individually. So that's my view on the game. Those are the key moments, the key areas that I think West Ham have to switch on for, and also what West Ham can take advantage of and who they have to deal with in particular. Let me know in the comment section what you think about this game tomorrow, what you think the result is going to be, score prediction wise. If you're a Tottenham fan, and I genuinely hope you're not, let me know what you think about this game and where it could be won and lost. I'll be back for the post match tomorrow after the game, probably later at night. I might even do it live just to discuss it with everybody. Fingers crossed we get the 3 points. It'd be a massive 3 points, not even in the context of a London derby, but just in terms of West Ham this season, getting this boxed off and putting points on the board now as we get towards 20 points. It's something about being a West Ham fan when you start thinking about the 40 point mark. We're far beyond that. So I will leave you all with that lovely positive note. See you all soon. Well, I would see you all soon. And now I will see you all soon.